Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Wassalatu wassalam ala Sayyidil Anbiya wal Mursaleen. Allahumma allimna ma yanfa'una wanfa'na bima tu'allimuna wa zidna bi fadlika ilman wa ta'liman innaka ala kulli shay'in qadir. So, continuing with the hadith, this may be our last class, maybe not, because we have, no, and we'll see inshallah, see how it works. So good words. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فلا يؤذيه فلا يؤذي جاره ومن كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليكرم ضيفه ومن كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليقل خيرا أو ليسكت. So Abu Hurairah narrates the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever believes in Allah, not has, من كان يؤمن, whoever believes in Allah and the last day must not harm his neighbor. And whoever believes in Allah and the last day must honor his guest. And whoever believes in Allah and the last day must speak well or remain silent. Right? So what it means is a style of saying, if this is the case about you, then don't just say, I believe in it. It has to act it out. And these are all very, very important, right? And who is your number one most important neighbor in the world? You spend most of your hours with
your spouse, children,
right? And so I remember, I think we have it downstairs when I got married, I had a number of things put in our house, right? And the hadith was it لا ضرر ولا ضرار من ضار ضاره الله ومن شاق شاق الله عليه, right? There's no harming and there's no harming back. Whoever harms, Allah harms him. Whoever makes things difficult for other people, Allah will make them difficult for him. Right? So many people think about the neighbors, like so many people, they worry about things, and it's like, subhanAllah, your number one thing is your spouse. Number one thing is your spouse. And everyone's like, yeah, but it's my spouse's fault. So it's not your fault. It's your reaction. It doesn't matter who your spouse is. If he's shaitan, if he's the Dajjal, if he's Fir'aun, it doesn't matter who he is or who she is. Nobody can harm you. Only you can harm yourself the way that you respond to scenarios. That's it. Right? فَلَا يُؤْذِي جَارَهُ. Number one person, don't harm your neighbor. Right? Avoiding كَفَّ الْأَذَى. Number one, stopping وَاحْتِمَالَ الْأَذَى. Right? Number one is not harming other people, and وَاحْتِمَالَ الْأَذَى, and dealing with harm. So this is the way we have to be. Right? And people are like, no, I don't want to do that. So then don't get married. Live with a dog instead. Right? Pet, your dog doesn't harm you. And if it harms you in a way that you can overlook, right? It's easy to overlook. The dog knocked over your coffee, like, oh, it's okay, right? But your husband does something, your wife does something. It's like, oh my God, again, right? Again. You have this whole list of things that this person did against you, and that thing, this thing, and that thing, this thing. So what is this? So number one is not harming other people, your neighbor, and your most important neighbor is your spouse, right? وَمَنْ كَانَ يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ فَلْيُكْرِمْ ضَيْفَهُ, right? And so this is very important as well. How many people, when you honor, they don't honor their guests, they show off, right? The guest is coming, hide this, hide that, vacuum clean pedantically. Why are you vacuum cleaning? Are you vacuum cleaning because of this word is in the words of the Prophet ﷺ in your ears? Or is it because it's show business, that they're going to look at me in this way, or I'm going to feel this way, right? And then I'm going to share something about myself, and they're going to share something about themselves, and it's a showing off thing, right? And so when you're cleaning your house, you have guests, should be in here. I don't care what the guests think about me. They're impressed by their food, not impressed by their food. They think I'm low class. I think I'm high class. I think I know how to cook. They know how to cook. And I don't care at all. Throw it out the window. But the Prophet ﷺ, he's told me, whoever believes in Allah and the last day, listen, let's honor my guests. And my guests wouldn't want to see that, right? So there's some hair on the toilet seat. You're like, oh my God, get rid of that. That's so disgusting. What if the guests would see that? They would think whoops, that's called showing off. As opposed to my guest would really not like that. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he told me to honor my guests, so I should remove that. That's something disgusting that the guests wouldn't like, right? Or whatever it is with the food or whatever it is, right? So you always إنما الأعمال بالنيات, action by intentions. Whenever you have an amal, what is the hadith or verse of the Quran in your head that's motivating you, right? من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليقل خيرا أو ليسكت, right? Again, perfect thing when it comes to family things. You missed the flight, okay? How many times have I told you pack your bags like the previous night? How many times? Tell me. 50 times at least. 50 times. I just lost a flight and it's unrefundable. You just cost me $10,000. What was the point of saying that? Is it useful to find out whose fault it is? Is that useful? That's not a useful thing. Maybe next time you could say, you know what happened last time? We actually missed a flight. And maybe I'm wrong, but the last time it seems probably because we packed in the morning. Let's pack 2 days in advance, right? And then we can finish maybe a day before, and then we can just chill the day, right? And then inshallah that won't happen, yeah? As opposed to, I have to be right and she has to be wrong, or he has to be wrong. And I have to win this argument. Why do you have to win the argument? Why is it useful? It's not useful. It just hurts people, right? So many times, like I'm saying it's true, but it's true though, isn't it? It's true what I'm saying. Yeah, I know it's true, but why are you telling me? Well, because it's true. Well, to win the argument? It's not useful to win the argument. 99% of the time, it's not useful to win the argument, right? So the golden words from the Prophet ﷺ, it's not useful. Don't say it. Don't say it. It's not useful. There's no benefit in what you're saying, even if it's true. Yeah, but it's true though. It is your fault. Nobody cares whose fault it is, right? Nobody who's cares fault. Um, Sister Amina, can I read your question out? Okay. So it says, Sheikh, if we decide to sell property to a neighbor and then a better offer comes, and we go to the neighbor and say they have a better offer, can you match it somewhat, or we will still sell it to you, as we told you before? And he puts out saying he does not want us to lose the opportunity, but he's upset. Is this wrong? So what is wrong is somebody else coming. So when you have promised to sell it to somebody, you've spoken, okay, and you've agreed on a price, but you haven't done the contract. There was no verbal or written contract, then it's totally fine for you to back out. What's wrong is when somebody else to come in and meddle, right? So somebody knows that you're going to sell it, and they come in and say, "I'll do it at a better price." That's haram for them to do that, right? But if you're not obliged to, if you tell your neighbor, we'll sell it to you for X amount, and then you're like, actually, we won't. That's fine. You're not obliged to do that. Is that the best thing to do? No, it's not the best thing to do. But you're not obliged to do that. There's no contract until the contract, right? There's no contract until the contract. He does not want to lose the opportunity, but is upset. Is this wrong? Just happened yesterday on my mind. Uh, uh, I didn't quite understand the rest of the sentence, but the rest of the question.
Yeah, so Sheikh, can I just speak?
Go ahead, Bismillah. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you've promised your neighbor, who's also your cousin, that you're going to sell to them, you haven't made a written contract. But then somebody comes along and says, I've heard in the market you're selling and I'll give you a better price. And the price is substantially different. And you find out that that's actually the market price. And then you go back to your cousin and say, well, you've got a better offer. And if you could somehow match it, maybe not come to the same level, but somewhat, and we won't back out of the deal. And he backs out and says he doesn't want you to lose the opportunity,
Oh yeah,
but is
that's fine.
very upset.
Yeah, that's fine. So as long as he backs out, so he's upset. What does that mean? Like he's so there's upset and there's So I mean, that's him doing that, right? As he's like, well, that, I'm upset that you even dealt with me in that way because you're my cousin and da 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 da, etc. So if they back out, it's fine, but you shouldn't back out of that, right? It's not, so it's still a valid sale. If you went and sold it to the other person, the sale counts. But the Prophet says, لا يبيع بعضكم على بيع بعض. Like you shouldn't do a sale over someone else's sale. So that's exactly what that person did, right? I heard you're
Yeah.
selling the house. I can do a better thing. That person done something wrong. You're doing something wrong if you go ahead with it. But now the person backed out. The original person backed out. So okay then. So that shouldn't have happened. What should have happened is the person came to you and said, "Subhanallah, may Allah reward you, but I've already made this thing, and so I want to go ahead with that." Right? Um,
Yeah. So
as
so the
opposed to
thing is
as
that
opposed to
if we've gone ahead with that deal, that's not a problem.
if the cousin has backed out, fine.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
what should have
Right.
happened is the opposite. It should have been you just go ahead. And if you can still back out of the first deal, right, and go back to the cousin and say, listen, we don't need the extra money. It doesn't matter what the market value is. It's okay. You just give us what we originally agreed on, right? That would be a better thing to do if you can do that. Maybe they don't want to anymore, right? That's a better
Yeah.
thing.
Okay.
It always depends.
Okay.
Like sometimes it's like, well, actually, we need that money. That's very significant, and so it could change. Wallahu alam. But that shouldn't happen.
Okay.
That's called selling over someone else's sale, and that you shouldn't do that. The process and told us not to do that. Same
Yeah.
thing with marriage,
That's what I thought.
right? Same thing with marriage, right? So the same thing applies. There's two families have agreed. They set a wedding date, and then someone else comes like, "Oh my God, why are you going to marry your daughter to so and so? My son's way better." And they're like, "Oh, really?" They should, you know, you shouldn't meddle like that. Once you know, you should wait unless they themselves say, no, it's okay, we're canceling the engagement. You shouldn't come and meddle like that, right? And so the exception to that is an auction, right? And an auction is totally different. So in an auction, obviously each person is offering and then you are waiting to get to the highest bid, right? So that's different, right? That's an auction.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Um, okay. So don't say things that are not useful. عن عبد الله بن سلام رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال يا أيها الناس أفشوا السلام وأطعموا الطعام وصلوا بالليل والناس نيام تدخل الجنة بسلام. Abdullah ibn Salam, he narrates to the Prophet said, "O people, spread peace." Right? Just be a nice person. Right? Many people, subhanAllah, it's like an argument every 2 seconds. Yeah, that's because you did something wrong. That's because you did this. That's because it's not useful. It's not nice. It's not nice. Just right. It's like everyone around me is an idiot. Okay. Alhamdulillah, what are you gonna do about it? Everyone around me doesn't know what to do. Nobody around me knows how to cook. Nobody around me knows how to manage things. Nobody around me knows anything. Okay. Is that useful? Is that a useful way of dealing with things? It's not a useful way of dealing with things. Right? So just be nice. Spread peace and encourage people to be nice. It's not useful. Say something that's nice. Help people. Right? Not continue fight, 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 fight. And be the person who puts out the fight. وأطعم الطعام and feed people. وصلوا بالليل والناس نيام and pray at night while other people are asleep, i.e., privacy of worship. And you will enter paradise in peace. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال الكلمة الطيبة صدقة وكل خطوة, right? And this is unbelievably important. Unbelievably important, right? The Prophet said, a kindly word is charity. And how many of us are cheap with kindly words, honestly? Because it does actually cost more. It costs more to say something nice, to say sorry, for example, to say you look nice, to say, oh, I'm so happy to be home, right? To say something nice to people, right? It's costs more emotionally than it does to give people money, right? It actually costs a lot. And so this is part of sakha, part of our generosity is to just be nice, say nice things, right? So many people's like, people, you ask somebody, are you grateful to so and so, right? Like, yeah, of course. Have you ever said thank you to them? No. What did the Prophet say? He said, if you love somebody, if you like somebody, tell them. right? It's like, oh, I don't want to say it's awkward. Think, what do you mean awkward? Like, why are you so emotionally cheap that you cannot go to somebody and say something nice to them? It's very important, right? Go up to them and say thank you. Like, I appreciate. It changed so many things, right? Of course, I appreciate what they've done. Well, why don't you go and tell them then? Why do you say, I appreciate the fact that you do A, B, C, D, 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 D. Well, it's obvious. How is that obvious? No, right? So this is one of the greatest sadaqah, and we're so cheap with that sadaqah that we don't want to give. We can't give emotionally, right? May Allah forgive us. And وكل خطوة تمشيها إلى الصلاة صدقة, and every single step you take to the prayer is charity. وتميط الأذى عن الطريق صدقة, and removing harm from the path is charity. وعن أبي برزة الأسلمي رضي الله عنه قال قلت يا نبي الله صلى الله عليه وسلم علمني شيئا أنتفع به قال اعزل الأذى عن طريق المسلمين. So Abu Barzah al-Aslami said, oh people, Prophet of Allah, teach me something I will benefit from. He says, remove harm from the path of Muslims, right? And I know some shuyukh are really big into this because they deal with a lot of people and they realize, for example, so many people have health problems. So many people have mental health problems. And their like number one thing is not teaching tafsir or Quran. Is number one thing is, man, there are so many things like simple chemicals things, like making sure women specifically have good levels of vitamin D, right? So removing harm from the path of the Muslim. This person trying to live their life, they're going through a divorce, they're going through psychological, all it is vitamin D levels. Subhanallah. All it is they're working at night and it's really bad for their health. Okay. So it's a huge thing, not a small thing at all. Discouraging evil character and prohibited matters. And ثوبان رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إن الرجل لا يحرم الرزق بالذنب يصيبه. So Thoban related the Prophet said, truly a man is prevented from provisions because of sins he commits, right? So it's a huge benefit when something's stolen from you or you lose something, right? Because it's a sign. It's like, okay, I know what's going on. It's either you're getting a reward for being patient, right? Something's being barred from you, taken away from you, right? The sins or impurity in some of your actions, dealings, the way things are getting tidied up. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is tidying it up here and not in the akhirah. So it's a huge benefit, right? And it's nice to see things, right? Imagine you don't know what's going on. Everything's great and it's like boom, right? And you don't always know what's going on, right? It's true. Sometimes something will happen and you're like, honestly, don't know what to change. Like I'm kind of confused. But at least it puts you in that danger zone, right? You're in a situation where like I'm genuinely scared. I know there's something off in what I'm doing. Is it with my kids? Is it with my spouse? Is it with my work? Is it with my prayer? Is it with this? I don't know what it is, but I'm now high alert. What is high alert called? It's called taqwa. Taqwa is what you're seeking. So being in a state like I'm not confident and there must be something wrong in my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I don't know what it is and I'm trying to find it out. That's a very good situation to be in, right? That's a very good situation to be in as opposed to being careless. Like, oh, I'm fine. Everything's great, right? So it's a very useful thing. As for your rizq coming at you all the time, inshallah, thank Allah, right? Thank Allah. But it's not the same as getting whacked, right? When you get whacked, then at least you know what's going on. You have some kind of parallel system, like, okay, I'm seeing what's going on here, right? We don't obviously ask Allah to give us tribulations like that, but it is useful. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال كل المسلم على المسلم حرام دمه وماله وعرضه. Right, this is part of a very, very famous hadith, and it's unbelievably important, right? And this hadith is a shift. I'm sure I mentioned it maybe last week or the week before, I don't know. Is a shift from a society of taboo, from a society of Allah. So you are a mushrik living in Mecca. You're very careful about how you treat this idol. You're very careful about these rituals, those rituals. You're very careful if I go on Hajj, if I come to Mecca, I have to do tawaf. If I leave, I have to do tawaf. Why? It's all about taboo, right? This thing is going to happen if that happens. It's almost like bad luck, right? If I don't walk under a ladder, and if I do walk under a ladder, I have to do this. And oh my God, this mirror broke. If the mirror broke, then this, right? So the whole thing is tied to like things, right? And these random rituals that don't really make any sense. They're impersonal, irrational rituals and rules that society or a somewhat religious thing has created, as opposed to the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, I am Allah. I have made certain things sacrosanct. And those things include the following: A, B, C, D. And then you're interacting with Allah through the Kaaba, and you're interacting with Allah through your spouse. You're interacting with Allah through the trash can. You're interacting with Allah through these things. So you see every single thing has a hurma, has a sanctity, right? The trash can has a sanctity, right? I remember, my dad, for example, telling me this, right? Rahimahullah. He said, if we don't rev the engine, I was like, why? He's like, what's wrong with like revving the engine? He says, Fareed, like, have you ever taken apart an engine? So no, I've never taken apart an engine. I'm not a mechanic. So I said, my dad said, I have taken apart an engine. Do you know how much pressure you put on the engine? When you rev the engine, how much pressure you put on the head gasket? I'm like, no. He's like, subhanAllah, first car, head gasket blown. Second car, head gasket blown. It's like, oh, and there's a hurma. Allah's going to ask me on Judgment Day, I told you not to put pressure on me and you blew my head. I was like, yeah, Allah, I don't understand. How could I blow your head and you're the Lord of the worlds? He says, didn't you know that the head gasket had a sanctity? Look after the car. Don't rev it more than you have to. Don't do that. It has a sanctity. Know Allah in the head gasket. Know Allah in the pencil. Know Allah in the printer. Work with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the way you put the shoes. Work with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the way you talk to the kids. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying every single Muslim, rich or poor, this tribe, that tribe, right? They're all haram. This is a term, haram, which means taboo, which means uh, sacred. So the Prophet is shifting this sense from one thing, which is rituals, right? You go into somebody is haram, they go into ihram. They are called haram, and the opposite is halal. When you come out of ihram, you are halal. So the Prophet ﷺ used these concepts to teach the Sahaba. I said, when you go into ihram, they're like, yeah, we know that. Similarly, when you do Allahu Akbar, that's called like ihram, the prayer. They're like, oh, okay. And you get out of ihram, so yeah, that's when you say assalamu alaikum. Say, oh, okay. So it's like you were like in this pilgrim sanctity, yeah. And when you're in ihram, like you can't hunt, yeah. Similarly, you can't park on someone's drive if they don't allow you to do that. Why are you going to Jum'ah and parking on someone's drive? That doesn't make any sense. That means you think Allah is a mosque. Whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say to you, Judgment Day, you parked on my drive. You say, Allah, you don't have a drive. Say, yeah, but that non-Muslim who lived next to the mosque, he had a right over you not to pass on his drive. Why did you do that? His mosque, his drive is sacrosanct like the Kaaba, and his blood is sacrosanct like the Kaaba, and his wealth is sacrosanct like the Kaaba, and his self-respect is sacrosanct like the Kaaba. There's no difference because you're not worshiping the Kaaba, you're worshiping me through revealing the Kaaba. You're worshiping me through putting the trash can in the right place. You're worshiping me through whatever it is, right? And it's not about things, it's about Allah. And then worshiping Allah through those things, right? This is super important, right? And so many people, again, they don't even understand it. They kind of think like, yeah, but that person's not important, this or that. They don't understand who they're talking to. May Allah forgive us all. وعن حذيفة بن يمان رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال لا يدخل جنة النمام. Hudayfa ibn Yaman said, Prophet said, paradise will not be entered by a talebearer, right? Somebody who says bad things about other people, and this person does this, and that person did this and this, right? So what does that mean? That person's going to go to hell first, right? May Allah protect us all. عن عبد الله بن مسعود رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال لا يدخل جنة من كان في قلبه مثقال ذرة من كبر. Abdullah Mas'ud relates to the Prophet said, paradise will not be entered by anyone with the least bit of arrogance in his heart, right? And so this is the benefit of all these difficult things that happen to life. Getting old, for example. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of his kindness, he makes you get old. You can't walk in the same way you used to walk. You can't do this, you can't do that. He makes you humble. Allah's making life easier for you. Allah's curing you of a disease that you might not be able to get out of, right? And it's a huge problem, right? Pride is a huge problem. And most people have some level of pride through their money, through their power, through their intelligence, through the this, through the that, right? And so it's a huge blessing. And so one of the ways that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removes pride from a religious person is making them fall into a sin, right? So they're talking, and then they fall into a sin. Whoops. And so, yeah, there's a sin. You shouldn't do a sin. In reality, it's for their benefit. Shock them and say, you know what? You're not actually that religious. You're not that amazing. You may have done this, you may have done that, but look at you. You just did a dumb sin. You lied about something that's pathetic. You cheated about something that was something late. You did something really thin. So to make them humble, right? To make somebody humble, right? And so every single thing, what are we doing in sujood? Making you humble. That's what we're doing every single day. Going to sujood, make yourself humble, right? And so it's a major, major thing. And money by default makes you proud, right? Makes you proud. And pride is something that's valued in our Western society, right? And it's really not good. So it's a major, major thing. Plead to Allah, show me my pride and help me get rid of it because it's a problem. Okay. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا يدخل الجنة من لا يأمن جاره بوائقه. Abu Hurairah narrates the Prophet ﷺ said, paradise will not be entered by anyone whose neighbor is not safe from his harm, right? Even if they're non-Muslim. So number one, don't harm other people, right? Number one, don't harm other people. We have to be very, very careful. It's more important than 1,000 trillion other things. Don't harm other people, right? Careful other, not harming other people. Huge thing, right? عن معاذ بن جبل رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال يطلع الله عز وجل على خلقه ليلة النصف من شعبان فيغفر لجميع خلقه إلا مشرك أو مشاح. Mu'adh ibn Jabal narrates that the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah looks at his creation with special mercy on the 15th of Sha'ban. He doesn't mention a hadith source for him, but it's well-known hadith. He forgives his entire creation, right? And this is this hadith, there's other hadith like this as well. It mentions Mondays and Thursdays, mentions Fridays as well, right? That you get forgiven, except what? A polytheist and one holding a grudge. So your grudge against somebody else is only yourself. So fundamental principle, nobody can harm you. Nobody can harm you. You can only harm yourself. So don't harm yourself. Nobody can harm you. If they kill you, you're destined to die. If they cause you pain, it raises your rank or forgives your sins. Nobody can harm you. You can only harm yourself, but your own responses to situations. So you have a grudge against somebody. Who are you harming? Yourself. What will you lose if you forgive them? Nothing. But I can't because of this, but I can't because of that. Totally waste of time, wasting energy and harming yourself. Forgive and forget. Forgive and forget. Forgive and forget. You do not lose anything. You only get more. Right? So emotional generosity. Everybody's happy to give $50, $100, $1,000, $1,000,000. That's great. You can give $1 million in charity. Can you forgive $1 million worth of offenses? No. Right. And so that's real generosity, is that, yeah, I've forgiven everybody. I don't, it's not like, oh yeah, I forgive them because they're going to get it Judgment Day. No, I've forgiven them. I have no issues with them whatsoever, forgiven them. May Allah reward them and increase them and make them better than me. Genuinely. May Allah forgive them, reward them, and make me better than me in the dunya and the akhirah. What's wrong with saying that? What have you lost by saying that? But, all these lists of things, you're just holding yourself back. You will become better and happier than them if you have that feeling. Otherwise, you're just holding yourself back. Right? So you, all right. And so again, there's this hadith. There's many other hadiths. Right? وعن عبد الله بن عمر رضي الله عنهما عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال ثلاث لا ينظر الله إليهم يوم القيامة عاق والديه مدمن خمر ومنان على بما أعطي بما أعطى منان بما أعطى. I believe. I don't think this is correct. أعطى. So Abdullah ibn Umar narrates the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah will not look, i.e. with mercy, at three people on Judgment Day. One who is disrespectful to his parents. Notice, not disobedient to his parents. Obedience is one thing, disrespect is something else. Right? So generally the fuqaha, they talk about obedience. The Shafis, they don't talk about it that much. Right? There are certain scenarios you have to obey your parents, but not that much. But the more point is, Aqqa walidahu is to be rude to your parents, right? So like Ibn Hajar, he says something that would be a minor sin towards a normal person will become a major sin towards your parents, right? And there are certain things that were not even minor sins towards other people, but it's just rude, right? And again, because it comes back to the spouse, who has a better right for a woman who has a better right than your parents over you? Right? The Prophet was asked, who has a better right over a man? He said his mother. Over a man, the person who has the best, highest right over a man is his mother. He said, what about a woman? He says, her husband. Right? So how many times do we see religious women, otherwise religious women, pray, fast, hijab, this, that? And it's like, what are you doing? Right? The respect due to your husband, even if he smokes, even if he doesn't pray, even is more than your father. So did you speak to your dad like that? Yeah. Okay. Well, you have big problems then. You speak to your parent like that, subhanAllah. May Allah forgive us all, right? So it's hard to be respectful to our parents. It's very hard because parents sometimes are really in the wrong. But there's a difference between correcting a wrong and protecting ourselves and being rude, right? Similarly, there's a difference between correcting a wrong with a husband, right? Uh, Preventing harm with a husband, commanding the right and forbidding the wrong with a husband, and being rude, right? So imagine, for example, your granddad smoked. How would you speak to him? Daddy, whatever you use in your language, whatever it is. We love you. We learned so much from you. Da, 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 da. We don't want you to get sick and die. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He wants you to look at how would you talk to your grandfather? Right? That's how you talk to your husband. Right? Like, what are you talking about? Why does my husband like that? Yeah, the fact that you're surprised is a problem, right? Because we don't see it's just my husband. It's like this guy I've known for like I don't know how long. Like he doesn't deserve respect. There's nothing about his behavior that deserves that respect. That's true. We don't care about how he behaves. We care about what he is. Right? The Prophet ﷺ said, if I were to ask anybody to do sujood to anybody, I'd ask a wife to do sujood to a husband. Didn't say that about your parents. Right? So is it because the Kaaba deserves sujood that we do sujood towards it? Or is it because we're doing sujood towards Allah? The Kaaba does not deserve sujood. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do sujood towards this thing out of your worship to me. Similarly, your husband does not deserve sujood. He's not that amazing, right? Most husbands are not that amazing. But that's not the point. The point is he is your qibla. The Prophet said, for a woman, he is your paradise and he is your hell. It's like, what are you talking about? Okay, we'll see in Judgment Day how it works out. Right? So many people, their focus is like some other planet. I don't know what their focus somewhere else. Right? It's like a woman who's like they go on Hajj, they fast, they do this, but they don't pray. Like, what are you doing? Like, how do you not pray? That doesn't make any sense. Like the main door, right, is they're not using it. Right? May Allah forgive us and give us wisdom and give us patience. It's extremely hard, of course, right? Why is it so hard to be respectful to your husband? Obvious reasons. Why is it so difficult? Why is it so difficult to be respectful to our parents sometimes? For obvious reasons. But that's why you have the great reward, right? Okay, and the one who disrespects his parents and the one who consumes alcohol. So mudmin al-khamr is consumes on a regular basis. Idman is like they do it, that's their thing. And one who reminds others what he gave them. That's why I say bima a'ta, right? So you do not do that. And again, with your spouse, don't do that. If you gave your spouse, your husband or your wife, something extra, it's haram to remind them. You can't say, yeah, but remember I loaned you money and I didn't have to, right? Haram, you can't do that. Can't do that, right? You can only do it with your kids, for example. You say, hey, I raised you, okay, and I'm paid for your college. Don't talk to me like this. Fear Allah, right? You can do that with your kids, right? But you can't do that with normal people, your husband or wife or somebody else. Like, hey, you can't remind them of favors. The favor you did for the sake of Allah, you don't need to remind Allah. Allah knows. You didn't do the favor for them. You did the favor for the sake of Allah. So they don't need to be reminded, right? And so it's haram to remind people of favors you did. Remember, I over, you stayed at my dad's house for those 5 years, for free. Did he ask you? No, you kind of owe me, right? You can't do those kind of things or whatever it is, right? You can't with your spouse or with anybody else. One cannot, you can't remind people of favors, and you can't do that. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال لا تحاسدوا ولا تناجسوا ولا تباغضوا ولا تدابروا ولا يبيع بعضكم على بيع بعض وكونوا عباد الله إخوانا. So this is the hadith, Sister Amina, right? Prophet said, do not envy one another. So what do you do if you feel envy? It's a normal emotion. Make dua for that person. Oh Allah, make them better than me in the dunya and the akhirah. The thing that you're envious of, their intelligence, their looks, their popularity, their religiousness. May Allah make him more religious than me, better looking than me, more intelligent than me, more knowledgeable than me, more successful in the dunya and the akhirah. A kid's better than me. Man's like, why is the kid's perfect? My kid's not crazy. May Allah make his kids even better. Make it more righteous, more healthy, more this, more this. Make dua for that person. Fight your own fire in yourself, as opposed to kindling it by making riba, etc., whatever it is. Do not promote your product to each other while not wanting to sell it. So this is called najash. Najash is in a what's it called? In an auction, you have somebody who's fake, right? He's putting in a fake offer, right? So in order to put the price up, there's somebody who's in the audience that keeps putting the price up more and more and more, right? They don't actually want to buy it. So they have agreements with the owner that they're going to do this and they're going to split the profits, etc. So that's haram. And do not hate each other, right? And do not abandon one another. Don't turn your back on each other, right? So this is exactly the modern Muslim world. Everyone's hating each other. And when a seller is concluding a deal, do not interject. So this is what we've agreed on a price, but we haven't done the contract yet. Or you have a right to cancel because sometimes you have a right to cancel. Let that person you exercise their right to cancel. Don't meddle and say, "Oh, cancel it," and I'll sell you something better for a better price. Don't do that. Don't meddle with other people's business. Right? وَكُونُوا عِبَادَ اللَّهِ إِخْوَانًا. Be slaves of Allah as brothers. Right? Slave of Allah. طيب. عن أنس بن مالك رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا يحل لمسلم أن يهجر أخاه فوق ثلاث. The Prophet ﷺ said, a believer is not allowed to avoid his brother for more than 3 days. Right? وعن بعض أصحاب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم رضي الله عنهم عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا يحل مسلما أن يروع مسلما. So the Sahaba narrated the Prophet ﷺ said, so it doesn't matter, we don't know which Sahabi it is, it's not a problem. Right? A Muslim is not allowed to frighten another Muslim. Right? And so is this a reason for Halloween to be haram? No, not really, right? I don't think Halloween is particularly frightening, right? That's not a reason. Somebody comes saying it's haram because it frightens people. Right? I mean, if it was genuine frightening, right? If you actually scared somebody, making they think there's a genuine zombie in their house, yeah, that might be haram. But that's not one of the reasons for Halloween to be haram. Halloween's haram for other reasons. There's not really a reason though, right? عن عبد الله بن عمر رضي الله عنهما عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال إن الظلم ظلمات يوم القيامة. Abdullah ibn Umar, right, the Prophet ﷺ said, truly oppression will be darknesses on the day of resurrection. Right? So it will take on that oppression will take on, and one of the most common forms of oppression with righteous, nice people is lack of prioritizing. Didn't prioritize properly, right? Accepting too many uh, 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 he's what's it called? Um, everything will take on a so so not prioritizing properly. So you overcommitted, right? I'll teach you and you and you and you and you, and then it's like, whoops, you carried too many responsibilities, and then you ended up not giving people their rights. You didn't give your body its rights, you didn't give yourself your rights, you didn't give your education its rights, you didn't give to family your rights, or whatever. You've got to cut from somewhere. Because you're so nice to everybody, you end up harming people. So don't do that, right? But you have to be very realistic. What can I do? What can I not do? And don't get to your max, because you're going to end up like, if you planned your schedule 100%, that means you're going to be ending up taking from something that's not fair, right? So it has to be some leeway that you're not wronging people, right? And so this oppression will take on the form, all right? And what does oppression mean? Dhulm in Arabic. You say in Arabic, al-bi'r al-madhluma is what? A well, bi'r, a well that is dug in the wrong place, right? So again, there's women in this class. I don't know if there's any males here, but classic thing of a woman, put your priorities in the wrong place. Career, that's great. I'm running an orphanage. It's not your priority though. Yeah, but it's good. Yeah, I know. It's not your priority. Memorizing Quran is fantastic, but it's not your priority. So what you're trying to say, I'm doing something wrong? I say, yeah, but I'm doing something good. I'm helping orphans, for crying out loud. I'm running for state, and this could change the whole world. I'm memorizing Quran. How can that be bad? I'm praying. How can that be bad? Yeah, it's not your priority, right? Same thing with a husband. It's not your priority. I'm helping my brother. I'm helping my neighbor out. Okay, what about your own kids? I'm teaching in another state. What about your own kids? Right? What about your own kids? Are kids praying? I don't know, but I'm teaching. I'm spreading Hadith everywhere. So yeah, but what about your own kids? Right? So your priorities, putting your priorities in place. If you don't put your priorities in place, you end up oppressing yourself, you end up oppressing other people. So getting your priorities straight is super important. And then if your priorities in the right place and you end up getting 40% of what you have to get done, it's fine. Because at least you got the priorities in the right place. As opposed to you played a game of chance. Inshallah, all of these things will come through, and I managed to get the rights done to everybody, inshallah, but what will happen most likely. So it's not your fault if you can't get everything done. It is your fault if you you don't prioritize properly. And then you end up what? End up wronging people. You're wronging yourself and other people. وعن أبي موسى الأشعري رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إن الله لا يملي للظالم حتى إذا أخذه لم يفلته. Super scary hadith. Abu Musa al-Ashari, he said, the Prophet said, truly Allah gives respite to the oppressor. Well, if I was such a bad husband, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have exposed me by now. Obviously, I'm not a bad husband because look, I'm a sheikh, right? Wrong. Be scared. Be very scared. Be very, very scared about the rights of other people. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may well be giving you respite. So go ahead. Knock yourself out, sheikh. Knock yourself out. Everybody loves you and everyone respects you and everyone thinks you reveres you. And maybe the person you're wronging is made to believe you're not wronging them, right? Because at the end of the day, you're a sheikh, right? At the end of the day, you're a righteous person, mashallah. You wear hijab, mashallah. Everybody thinks you're a good person and you think you're a good person, but you're clearly wronging people and it's just being ignored, ignored, ignored. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not giving you the wake-up call. So it's a blessing to have a wake-up call. Allah is not giving a wake-up call, and then bang, he gets you, right? Super scary. We should be really scared like this, right? A healthy paranoia that we're checking our life. Where am I wronging people? Where am I wronging people? Here, there, maybe this, maybe the way I'm talking to this person, right? This is called taqwa, right? It's not OCD. OCD is I'm not wronging people, but I am wronging people. Like today, somebody asked me, Sheikh, you out of respect, you're supposed to go to sleep after your parents. But my parents told me to go to sleep. So how do I do that? That's OCD. Like, what are you talking about? Like, like you kind of go around in circles, right? And there are people like that. They kind of like look for faults that aren't there. but it's a real thing, like wronging other people, wronging your spouse, wronging your kids, wronging your health, right? Wronging this, wronging that. There's lots of things you should be scared about, right? Like I fear Allah, fearing Allah concerning your body, fearing Allah concerning your kids, fearing Allah concerning your husband or wife, fearing Allah concerning your parents. That's a healthy thing. Like I'm concerned, you know? Is it I don't call my mum enough? Is it maybe I didn't, I'm concerned. You should have that thing, and there's a healthy, good paranoia, right? Bad or not paranoia, but healthy fear that makes you be careful about how you live life. That's called taqwa, right? Being in a little bit of worry and concern, right? As opposed to, oh, everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine. Boom, right? May Allah protect us and forgive us. عن عبد الله بن مسعود عن عبد الله بن عباس رضي الله عنهما عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال اتقي دعوة المظلوم فإنه ليس بينها وبين الله حجاب. Right, the same thing. The Prophet Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he said, fear the supplication of the oppressed. Now, should you make dua against your people who oppress you? No. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, be careful. He might make dua against you one day. And for truly between it and Allah, there is no barrier. Right? And so many people, subhanAllah, they have these like crazy way of thinking. They're really bad people, and they're like, no, I'm right. I'm a good person. I'll be shown true soon. Allah, may Allah forgive us all. Right? And so again, number one fear, oppression in marriage. Number one. Number one, right? We should all be scared. I fear Allah concerning my spouse. I fear Allah concerning my spouse. Super important. What's the opposite? Lack of taqwa. When is lack of taqwa a good thing? It's not, right? It's not. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال آية المنافق ثلاث إذا حدث كذب وإذا وعد أخلف وإذا اؤتمن خان. So that Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu narrates the Prophet said, the signs of a hypocrite are three. When he speaks, he lies. When he promises, he breaks it. And when he is trusted, he betrays his trust. So here, the majority of the ulama, they say is that he's lying in his promise, right? Oh yeah, I'll come see you tomorrow in his head, not, right? So what is haram according to the majority of the ulama is to make a promise that you have no intention of keeping. That's because you're lying, right? Just lying. As opposed to, I'll come and see you tomorrow. Like, I'm really sorry. Like, I just can't, Or I don't want to. I made a promise yesterday, but I've decided I don't want to do it, right? Now, a minority of scholars, like certain Hanafis, like Taqiyuddin al-Subki of the Shafi'is, like many of the Malikis, they said it is haram to do that. Like if you make a promise, you have to fulfill it. But the relied upon position in the Maliki school is that that's regarding financial issues. For example, please buy that car and sell it to me for this price. So he goes and buys it. And oh no, I don't want it. Right? You can't do that. Or I'm gonna come to the airport. Can you pick me up? Like I don't have any cash on me. Can you pick me up? Yeah, sure. And then he turns up, oh, I don't want to pick you up anymore. Okay, there's a financial issue as opposed to something else like, can you come and visit me? That's not obliged to do that, right? Hafidh al-Sakhawi, he has a whole essay saying that it is you are morally obliged to keep to your promises. If you make a promise, you have to keep to it, right? But again, for the majority of the ulama, it means he makes a promise not intending to keep it. He's lying when he's saying that, and therefore he doesn't keep it. That's the position of the majority of the ulama. عن عبد الله بن مسعود رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال إياكم والكذب. So you can say al-kidh, but that's not incorrect, but you don't normally say that. We don't normally say al-kidh. We normally say al-kadhib. فإن الكذب يهدي إلى الفجور وإن الفجور يهدي إلى النار وما يزال الرجل يكذب ويتحرى الكذب حتى يكتب عند الله كذابا. Abdullah Mas'ud, he says, beware of lying, because truly lying leads to corruption, and corruption leads to the hellfire. And a man will not stop lying and persist in lying until he is recorded with Allah as a chronic liar, right? It becomes a way of life. And so we should be very, very careful of this, right? May Allah protect us. And the end of the hadith, or the other side of the hadith, says, "Alaykum bis-sidqi fa inna as-sidqa yahdi ila al-jannah or ila al-birr," or something. I can't remember the exact hadith. وإن الرجل وما يزال الرجل يصدق ويتحرى الصدق حتى يكتب عند الله صديقا أو كما قال, right? So the other side of the hadith is make sure you're true in word and deed in the way you are, because it leads to paradise, or it leads to good, and good leads to paradise. I can't remember the hadith exactly. And this is, a man will keep trying to be true, right? You're trying to pull this good thing out of you, and keep trying to do that and being genuine, right? And again, it comes in a spouse, right? So people, spice is the plural of spouses. We don't use it very much, but they flip, right? Sometimes they're like, oh, they have a certain way of doing things, and then they suddenly change. Like, what are you doing? Right? Particularly a husband, and that's right. Husband is like, okay, we're gonna work in one way. Like for example, we're gonna work things out between us. And then actually, no, it's my way or the highway. And then, oh yeah, and that's right, let's work things out together. And then actually my way or the highway. Like you're all over the place. You're not not sidq, right? You know, oh, no second wife. Actually, let's think about second wife. No second wife. I'll never have a second wife. Yes, no. It's like, where are you? Right? You can do whatever you want, but just be one person, right? Be one person. Like, you want my input or you don't want my input. You do care or you don't care, right? Just be something, right? And many men, unfortunately, may Allah protect us from akhir zaman, it's not straight. You're all over the place, right? You're one thing and the another thing, one thing and another thing, one thing and another thing, right? And that's somewhat acceptable for a woman. Women, they do change more physiologically, chemically, right? Hormonally. But for a man to be like this, flip, flip, flip. One day you're Mr. Tough Guy. One day you're not. One day it's like really weird. Like you're not really, it's like random. This is not, it doesn't behoove a man, right? This is not sidq, right? May Allah protect us and give us sidq. You keep trying to be sadiq. Like, I want to be a straight person with myself, with other people, with Allah, until you keep trying to do that until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala writes you down on the list of Siddiqeen, the people who are genuinely true. Inshallah, we'll stop here and we'll come back to, inshallah, I think maybe next week we'll finish. Maybe more than that, Allahu. I think maybe 2 weeks, Allahu. Subhanallah wa bihamdik. أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.